Hey everybody, Rob here. It's time for some stories from the ProRevenge archives. First one, how to shut down a party for good. Let's jump right in. What happens when you subscribe to a TTS channel?
You let the robots win.
We can't let that happen. Subscribe here for more daily Reddit stories. So my dad is an old amateur radio guy, ham operator. And when I was about 13 to 14, my family was living in a crappy duplex while our new house was being built. We had decent neighbors on the other half of the duplex, but every time they went away for the weekend, often, their 18 to 20-year-old son would host these huge parties and did not give two craps about noise complaints. We would call the cops, they would come, turn it down, but the music would get turned up right away when they left. One night, it was getting especially out of hand, and the cops never came to deal with it. Late into the night, my dad gets up, pulls out an old radio of his out of the storage closet. All his gear was packed up since he didn't have the room for it or his 60-foot antenna tower in this little craphole duplex. He pulls about 20 feet of unshielded wire off a roll and starts running it out the back of his radio, along the wall, up about 5 feet, back down, across the wall some more, up again, and back down. He knew where the tower speakers were located on the other side of the wall from having coffee with the neighbors. He keys the mic and we could hear the click come through the wall. He then shouts, "Turn that crap down," into the mic, and it came back through the wall louder than I could hear his voice while standing next to him. And about half of down is replaced with a loud whump noise, followed by silence. Cooked the amplifier for their stereo, skipped right past any protection circuits inside it. My dad had an ear-to-ear grin before we had douchebag son pounding on our door. My dad opened the door, and this kid starts throwing punches immediately. Called the cops again, now with an assault report, and suddenly they show up in minutes. My dad didn't press charges, but the cops made him apologize, and when his parents got home, they made their son pay for the stereo. That was the last party he ever had. Don't you think Opie's dad should have messed with him a little bit? He could have been like, "Open up, this is the police." Or he could have been, "Hello, this is the voice of God. I'm interrupting your music to tell you to stop being buttholes, okay? Thanks." On to our next story. Try to screw me over in class, enjoy your failing grade. Let's jump right in. This just happened. I just finished finals for university and got screwed over. It started in my computer science class a couple months before today. Projects 3 and 4 were to be group projects. We were assigned a teammate from the class. My teammate, we'll call him Sam, and I decided we'd meet up and work on the project. After discussing what we wanted to do, we found the easiest way would be to work remotely and text each other, as we both have very busy schedules. Flash forward to a week before it's due, and Sam has done nothing. I started working on it and was waiting for him to collaborate. He did not. At this point, I said screw it, and started working on the project. I got 90% of it done in 3 days, and left the other 10% to him. He kept saying how sorry he was, and that he was busy. Okay, I get it. I'm busy too. You could have put more effort in, but our peer evals will reflect that. Well, he does the last 10%, but not correctly. So I go back in and finish it and submit it, thinking I won't have to deal with him again. Wrong. The next week we had an exam. Exams in this class had an in-class portion and an online coding portion, each worth about 50% of the total exam grade. Online portions were released a few days before and were due before midnight exam day. Well, at 7 p.m. on exam day, I got a text from Sam asking to send an online portion. I ignored it and he kept texting. It was like he felt entitled to getting my exam. I wasn't about to fail this test or give a leech blood, but this really pissed me off. Then we had Project 4 assigned. It was essentially an extension of Project 3, so we would have the same groups. This project was much harder and way more time consuming. Knowing Sam's work ethic last time, I came up with a plan. I did minimal work on the project up until the week before it was due. Then I ramped it up, but not enough to complete the project. The day before it was due, I got a text from Sam saying, "I'm sorry dude, I was super busy with my other project and didn't have time to work on it. Is there anything left to do?" Now we used an online code editor that works similar to Google Docs in that you can see who is looking at the file and where their cursor is. I had seen his periodically throughout the entire last week. He was checking on how I was doing, but not actually helping. So when he asked, "Is there anything left to do?" my response was no. He apologized profusely. He just texted sorry, and I immediately emailed the professor explaining the situation, then proceeded to finish the project. This butthole was going down. A couple hours later, I got an email back from my professor. Just as I thought, Sam had submitted the incomplete code each partner submitted separately as his own. My professor was very understanding and replied with this: "The submission Sam put up was not fully featured or particularly well working, so he did not receive much in the way of points. I was unaware of who did what though, and as it seems to be your work, his grade will reflect that. His failures are his own. Justice served, motherfucker." I got another text from Sam today asking me what I got on the project, telling him that I got an A was the most satisfying thing ever. I think group projects really prepare you for the real world because once you get to the working world, you're gonna realize there's a lot of people there that don't pull their weight as well. On to our next story. I don't work there anymore. Let's jump right in. My employer decided to convert all of a certain class of our records from paper-based files to digital. There were 3 immediate problems. Our company was not going to buy a generic system, but develop our own unique, tailored system. It was to be done on the cheap, with net savings for record keeping from year 1. The guy in charge, let's call him Genius, always, and I mean always, thought he was the smartest guy in the room. Believe me, he wasn't. Anyway, one of the girls I worked with took on the project on the condition that she could have the next July off for her wedding and honeymoon. She worked hard and the project was actually making progress. One of her duties was passwords, none of which could be written anywhere because Genius knew this was bad. She periodically reminded Genius about the July wedding and he told her it'd be fine, but never signed off the paperwork. Come mid-May, the project is way behind, mainly because Genius told management it could all be done in-house at negligible cost, and Genius kept changing the design every time he read a new magazine article on IT. My friend was then told 6 weeks out from the wedding that her leave was cancelled. The project took priority, and she'd just have to reschedule her wedding, honeymoon, the works. Genius just could not see that this might be a problem. So she did her job, updated the passwords as required, never recording them anywhere as required, and resigned without notice the last day of June. On her honeymoon, she gets a frantic call from Genius demanding all the passwords. "Sorry, I don't work there anymore." Click. That's why a decade later, our company still has a few hundred electronic case files we can't access. I'm guessing that boss wasn't married themselves, probably had never been in a relationship themselves. I mean, come on. Everybody knows how much planning goes into a wedding. On to our next story. Take my flight home, I'll take your money. Let's jump right in. As a new lieutenant in the Army a few years back, I was tasked to be a guest observer evaluator at the National Training Center in California. Basically, it's a large desert with small towns for military units to train in before deploying. On day 29, once all evaluations were complete, I was set to fly back to Texas and return to my unit. In the observer and control barracks, I was approached by a Colonel DFO. "Lieutenant Bucks, I'm taking your place on the flight back to Fort Blank. Sir, you're part of the training unit, all of the observers are leaving on this flight, and my bags have already been sent to the airfield. I don't have any changes of clothes. You'll be okay for a few days. Officers must innovate to be successful." And innovate I did. When I returned to my post, I was unable to locate my gear, including body armor, computer, cold weather gear, and other like items due to the fact that they flew in 2 days before me on the flight I was kicked off. I informed my command and they initiated an inquiry called an FLIPL, Financial Liability Investigation of Property Loss, in which an investigator is required to determine the reason for lost government property. The investigating officer determined that I was not at fault and that DFO abused his authority to return home earlier. Additionally, since I was left at the training center for over 30 days, I was due additional pay for being away for over a month, which amounted to over $1,000. DFO was found liable for over $7,000 worth of my equipment and had to pay for it, which I subsequently found and turned into the Central Issue Facility. I was reissued a new set of kit. I bought myself a nice chair and put the rest into my TSP, government equivalent of a 401k, with the extra temporary duty, TDY money, and face got reduced to a staff job. OP stated down below, this is the moment that I learned patience wasn't only a virtue, but also a tool for vengeance. On to our last story. She kept the receipts and got the vice principal removed from his job. Let's jump right in. My best friend Karen is a first grade teacher, and as soon as she told me this story, it gave me such a justice boner that I knew I had to retell it here. 2 years ago, Karen had a student named Xavier, sweet little 6-year-old boy when things were good, but his parents had just gotten divorced. His mom wasn't that great even before she was out of the picture, and his dad was quite disengaged from both his son's behavior and his IEP, Individualized Education Plan. Rather understandably, Xavier acted out in class. He'd refuse to listen to Karen, push other kids, and disrupt class in more ways than I could possibly list. Now, Karen worked her ass off with Xavier to improve his behavior and get his dad more involved in a positive way. She'd often call me and talk about it to decompress, because that's what friends were for. But occasionally, Xavier went too far and did something she couldn't just deal with in class, like trying to stab another student in the hand with a pencil. On those occasions, she wrote him up with a referral and sent him to the vice principal, VP. But surprise, surprise, VP was absolutely no help whatsoever. He'd joke around with Xavier, refuse to address the problem Karen sent Xavier there for, give him candy, and then lecture Karen for writing up a 6-year-old for any reason because it reflected badly on VP. I'm pretty sure this has to do with the BS known as merit play, but whatever. Unfortunately, his actions made it significantly harder for Karen to help Xavier. To top it all off, Karen figured out after a few referrals that VP logged into the system and erased each of Xavier's referrals, thus erasing all evidence of Xavier's pattern of behavior. In a word, this is bad. I know nothing about education, but damn well know that much. My brother was a holy terror in elementary school and got in so much trouble from 3rd to 6th grades that both the principal and vice principal were on a first-name basis with my mom. Those records sure didn't get disappeared. Not into the shredder and certainly not into the digital ether. She reported this to her higher-ups who weren't VP, but they both told him about the complaint and specified that Karen was the one making the complaint. Vice principal was cold with and rude to her after that. Nothing was done about it because it seemed to be a one-time thing. But now, Karen knew what to do. Every time she had to write Xavier up again, which blessedly became less often as the year went on, she meticulously documented everything herself, sent herself all the relevant stuff, saved the emails, the whole shebang. By the end of the year, Xavier's behavior had greatly improved, thanks to her mentoring and the various ways she learned how to engage with him in the classroom. She even talked to his 2nd grade teacher to make sure the woman knew how to work with Xavier. God, Karen went above and beyond for this child. Partway through the next school year, the higher-ups come talk to Karen again. Even though nothing was done about her complaint the previous year, a record has been made of it. As it turns out, another teacher had reported VP for doing the exact same thing to her as he'd done to Karen. If she'd had anything related to her own ordeal, they'd wanted to see it. Oh boy did she. She gave them every single digital receipt she'd accumulated for the better part of a school year to compare with VP's, establishing a pattern of him undermining teachers via erasing students' patterns of behavior. VP was quickly removed from his position as vice principal of Karen's school, even though he wasn't technically fired. He was just moved to a different school and put in a much lesser position, and paid significantly less than before. Bonus, he taught history at Karen's and Mai's high school while we attended it, and everyone loved him. I look forward to telling this whole story at our reunion, because we sure don't like him now. When she reported this to the higher-ups who weren't the VP, and they told him about the complaint, that just made me incredibly angry and upset that that's the way the system works. It's a load of crap. A happy side to the update though, we're told that Xavier is doing well and even comes to visit the previous teacher every once in a while just to say hi. I'd like to thank all 5 OPs for posting their stories to the ProRevenge subreddit. You can visit them at the links in the description below. Please go there and give them an upvote. Once again, this is Rob from Karma Comment Chameleon saying thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and share it with your friends. And we'll see you in the next one.